whenever there is an adversity, resilient companies or strong companies become stronger and weaker. Weak companies, weak organization become weaker. And I think one of the things with one needs to develop, and any management, any organization, ability to cope up with this adversity. I think authenticity is important. Okay, so and therefore my belief is that promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise. See, ultimately in India, if you have to drive penetration, I think affordability and availability are the two big mantras I would talk about. And therefore I think it's important you can do it. So if you look at shampoo sachets that happened maybe 30-40 years ago, but the fact that affordability is a big thing. AI can throw a lot of options. There should be a human to finally take the choice making and decisions.
Yeah.
You can't outsource the intellectual capacity to AI totally. Like in our industries, I think the biggest disruption has happened in the field of marketing, for example, the traditional marketing versus today's marketing. So I think it's important for them to get trained in it.
Hello and welcome to Fortune India's In Conversations podcast. My guest today is a FMCG veteran. His company, Marico, a homegrown FMCG company, made its presence felt at a time when multinationals ruled the roost. Marico, under the leadership of founder Harsh Mariwala, talked about building brands out of commodities and innovation-led growth at a time when that whole concept was a far cry. Today, Saugata Gupta, MD Marico, is steering the company to the next level of innovation-led growth. From building new categories to acquiring digital-first startups, let's find out from the man himself how he's scripting Marico's future. Thank you, Saugata, for speaking to Fortune India.
My pleasure.
So we're talking at a time when the country has started facing the brunt of the geopolitical crisis. So it'll be interesting to hear from you as to, and you've had a great year last year. It was a growth-led year. It'll be interesting to hear from you as to how you're bracing up for the newest disruption.
See, if you look at the last 5-6 years, starting from COVID, I think today black swan events have to be baked into as if it's a part of a standard risk management. And what we have seen is that whenever there is an adversity, resilient companies or strong companies become stronger and weaker. Weak companies, weak organization become weaker. And I think one of the things with one needs to develop, and any management, any organization, ability to cope up with these adversities, because ability to spot an opportunity or a risk ahead of others and coping with it is something which we need to look at very, very closely. Now, I think this is something unprecedented. Of course, we had, as I said, the disruptions because of COVID. Then we had Ukraine, which led to Ukraine war leading to inflation. For us, last year was unique actually, where we had 100% increase in our main commodity cost, copra, and we had to take around a 60% price increase, which is unheard of anywhere in the world with parachute. So I think we now have a strong battle-hardy team. This is something which obviously we are hoping for an early full resolution to this, because otherwise it will be an issue. We are monitoring it closely. Obviously, there are significant input cost pressures. At the same time, for us, 50% of our raw material basket is actually copra, where there's a deflation from compared to last year, which is around a 30% kind of a deflation. So we are slightly in a different position. We are monitoring this closely. We have taken some price increases. We have ensured a balance between managing supply chain assurance. Some of our international markets, the inflation would be higher because they have taken much more hikes, whether it's in petroleum and gas. I think in India, we have been far better insulated by the government. And I think we are waiting and watching. And I think the other uncertainty is the El Nino, which might have an impact on the monsoon.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a tricky year. It's going to be a difficult year. But as I said, that at the end of the day, you have to manage or cope with better than others.
This year on, most FMCG companies have reported good growth. The Q4 has been good for most of them. And while everyone thought it would be difficult because, the war broke out, the West Asia war broke out. So what really was what really led to this kind of growth?
So I think two, three things. I think one is, if you look at it, last year only rural had recovered. Uh, we saw a significant recovery in urban sometime from October. A part of it is because of low inflation. Or usually, wherever there is low inflation, especially food, it drives FMCG consumption. Okay. Secondly, I think the GST rationalization, I think, had a significant impact in terms of making products affordable. So, because a large section of whether it's in HPC or food, most of the food products are today at 5%. At 5%, see, consumers are aspirational. They want to get into branded products. At 5%, affordability has become a big driver of that growth. And therefore, that started driving urban growth in the second half of the year. As far as the West Asia crisis is concerned, I think the impact will be felt more towards this quarter and the significantly towards the next quarter, because by the time it hit sometime in early March. I mean, and therefore the impact on Q4 was marginal, very very marginal. Obviously, some of the organizations, Indian multinationals which had businesses in Middle East, had some impact. There was
Yeah.
some impact on logistics costs, but the impact will be felt far, I think, more in quarter one and significantly more in quarter two. And if there is no resolution, early resolution to this.
Okay. Um, I've spoken to you several times, especially during COVID, and I remember you telling me, talking about finding opportunity in crisis. So, and we all know that the coming quarters are going to be challenging. So, I mean, are you hoping to spot some opportunities also, which will help your business?
So I think fundamentally, I believe that we want to continue to invest behind growth, invest behind capability, and this also forces you to find out more inefficiency, wastages from the system, pushes you to focus on big things, and I believe that we are reasonably confident of continuing to give top quartile growth for the organization. And given that we are in a unique position in terms of our inflation is concerned, I think the inflation, as far as inflation is concerned, we are in a better position. I talked to you about this earlier, about the fact that a significant portion of our consumption basket, we have actually deflation. This
Mhm.
gives us an opportunity to continue to get gun for growth.
So, would you be looking at coming up with newer kinds of products? What kind of product like disruptions are you hoping to make?
I think we have enough on our plate, and I believe focus is very important. And a lot of times, people think. People think talent is a resource, money is a resource, capital is a resource, but even management bandwidth or time is a big resource. So we have enough on our hands. I think we need to execute them. We did a significant amount of digital acquisitions
Yeah.
early on in Q4 between Jan and Feb. So we have a lot of things on our plate. So I believe that scaling them up, one of the significant things we started sometime in 2 years ago or 1.5 years ago was Project Setu, which was a significant revamp or expansion of our distribution. I think there is enough of a journey to be had. So I don't see maybe some entry into one or two food categories, maybe some of the premiumization agenda, but I think we'll stay focused on what we need to do. And I think there is enough growth to be had on what the portfolio we have it today with us.
Interesting. Again, moving on to your some of the as you spoke about, you made a lot of acquisitions last year, and you always talked about spotting gaps and solving for those gaps. And most of some of your recent acquisitions have been in the protein space. You've acquired a popcorn brand, which is completely different from the protein category that you have entered. So I was just curious to know as to what really was the rationale when it comes to your food business.
So primarily, if you look at it, we have a play between three or four brands, which is Safola.
Yeah.
Safola is again better for you hair. I mean, products which are we for consumers who want to healthy way of life. It is a masstige brand. True Elements is a clean label brand which operates in breakfast and snacking. I think as far as cosmetics is concerned, it is more into VMS and plant protein and catering to a significant amount of vegan consumers and vegetarians, and that's why plant protein. And I believe it's a slightly more serious nutraceutical play. Plix is a more fun nutraceutical.
Yeah.
It started the journey with ACV, then went into pivoted towards hair and skin food, which is a more personal care, and expanded the TAM. And so therefore I think overall in the wellness or health space, we have got it covered mostly between the four brands. Now, the reason we got into 4700 BC is that if you look at snacking, or I mean, gourmet snacking is coming off big because people are today doing a lot of Netflix and other binging. The stay at home is also a significant thing, And say for gourmet snacking, and the entire TAM is around 24,000 crore. So suddenly it expands the TAM, and therefore I think as far as food is concerned, we have enough on our plate, and there will be some overlaps. For example, between Saffola, True Elements, or sometimes True Elements and Cosmetics, but there will be different price points. But generally, our pivot is towards health and wellness. Uh, 4700BC is an interesting proposition.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing about 4700BC is in the channel. It's available in a lot of airlines globally.
Okay.
So there's an institutional, or what I call the food service play, which other brands can also piggyback to. So that's an interesting, and it's a different proposition. We are pretty excited about all the this one plays in our portfolio. And having said that, we will restrict ourselves. We will not get into things like mass end of either commodity. We will not get into things like uh, which are basically which requires impulse, which requires a
Staples. Yeah.
different distribution. So
Yeah.
staples and impulse is something which is outside our ambit.
I had a couple of questions. You talked about clean label, your focus on clean label, and there are a lot of questions being raised about how clean is clean label. I mean, how are you solving that piece of the puzzle? When it comes to, because a lot of clean label brands have come under under the lens. So how are you going to deal with it, and how are you going to build that narrative?
I think authenticity is important. Okay, so and therefore my belief is that promise what you can deliver and deliver what you promise. I think it's important, the responsibility of the manufacturers. At the same time, I think it's a responsibility of the people in the other side. The community, to ensure that there is no sensationalization. At the same time, I think if you look at in the area of you know financial sector, the I think there is now regulations in
Yeah.
terms of how do influencers and
Yeah.
other people can the entire protocols and the best practices. I think we should have the similar thing for food and other products.
Again, you're saying that you're going to focus mostly on the premium food category, and most of these are D2C acquisitions. How are you going to mainstream it? Are you going to kind of make it available through your traditional distribution chain also? How are you going to make it massy?
See, I think I don't see ourselves getting into a significant amount into a mass scale. The reason is, see, the food business model is completely different. If you look at food business model, if you want to participate in scale, the supply chain, cost structure, distribution is completely different. We don't want to reinvent it. So I would see our food business getting restricted to either organized trade or metros, mini metros. I mean, even if I have distribution in top 50,000, 100,000 outlets, I'm fine. Even a masala oats, for example, is available in 250,000 outlets. So there are opportunities. To give you an example, if I look at popcorn, if I launch a 20 rupee popcorn, I can mass distribute definitely. But the larger part of the business will continue to be at the slightly more top end, because it's very difficult to have a mass food model and a mass personal care model existing. uh, you know Having said that, I think if I look at it, food the runway for food growth in India is bigger because of the packaged food penetration being lower. And if you look at the last couple of years, packaged food companies have delivered higher growth than HPC sector companies, and therefore we will continue to focus on food.
What is the consumer asking for? Because if you go to tier 2, tier 3 markets also, they are aspirational. And I mean, those are areas where probably a Blinkit or a Swiggy Instamart may not be available, but there is aspiration to consume a caramel coated popcorn, or you're also getting into, you said you're getting into makhana. So how do you make them available? Is it going to be democratization of your premium products, uh, or how are you going to do it?
I think e-commerce penetration is now reasonably large scale in India.
Okay.
Quick commerce is also penetrating. And see,
Mhm.
the thing is that you'll be surprised to know even like a significant portion of Plix consumers, for example, come from tier 1 and tier 2 towns. So both in personal care and food, I believe there is penetration. Obviously, food, because of shelf life, there is a restriction to the kind of mass distribution you can do.
I report a lot in the rural markets, and I report a lot in tier three India. And there's one trend which I noticed when I went there just before the West Asia war broke out, and I could see a clear dominance of regional brands, and regional brands giving stiff competition to their national peers across categories. And I was actually surprised to in a market like Jaunpur, I was surprised to see a regional muesli brand, which was sitting next to the national brand, and it was not too much of a price difference. But yet there were more takers for the regional brand. I mean, I'm just curious to understand. Is and this time around the regional brands, especially after COVID, they're no longer fly by night operators. They are kind of investing in technology, they're investing in distribution, packaging, everything. Are they giving you sleepless nights?
So I think two things. I think
Yeah.
if you look at for large FMCG incumbent organizations, there are competition at both end of the spectrum. At the top end, obviously, you have a lot of DTC brands.
Yeah.
At the bottom end, you have regional brands, and regional brands are here to stay. We see much more regional brands in either food, especially in food, and some low involvement personal care categories. Don't see too many regional brands in beauty or premium personal care. And if you look at globally also the trends, global companies have far more domination, in personal care than food. In food, obviously, regional preferences, local preferences dominate. So I think the question is, how do you invent? Uh, Sometimes what happens is, large listed companies and companies who follow best GMP or good manufacturing practice have a certain cost of doing business. So sometimes you might not be able to compete with some of the players. So the question is that I think there is enough play for everyone. Okay. And for us, the focus is that I don't think for us we can have a right to win by participating in mass food categories, which the regional brands dominate. Having said that, I think in our other part of the business, like brands like Parachute or value added hair oils, we do compete with regional and small players, where I think we have done fairly well out there. But as far as food is concerned, do I see myself getting into too much into tier 2, tier 3 or rural? The answer is no, because then my right to win is far lower there.
What about the other categories, personal care categories? You have a men's grooming brand, you have,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely. Set wet gel, for example, we have a
yeah.
10 rupee product. See, ultimately in India, if you have to drive penetration, I think affordability and availability are the two big mantras I would talk about. And therefore I think it's important you can do it. So if you look at shampoo sachets or whatever, that happened maybe
Mhm.
30, 40 years ago. But the fact that affordability is a big thing, and if you look at it today, the price point maybe 10 rupee, it could be a 25 rupee price point. So you have to democratize and make that thing available.
So there's a clear trend of premiumization and democratizing premium products. That's in India. You have businesses in other geographies and other countries also, like the Middle East, Africa. Uh, how are consumer habits evolving over there, and how different are they from India, or are they different? Are
If
they
you look at
similar?
it, we most of the markets where we are present in an emerging markets. So emerging markets means that there is still scope for penetration increase. The consumer, the age of the population is young. There is headroom for growth. Most of the countries are low to middle income. Of course, we do participate in some of the developed economies, especially in the Middle East. We also are present in some of the, like in US. We are present in Canada. We are present in UK. Uh, Also, a lot of countries traditional trades coexist with modern trade, and I would say that we like to thrive in some kind of a I won't call it chaos, but it's not a perfect system in most of the countries we operate in. It is not as complex as in India, but I think the same broad trends emerge there. The consumers, their aspirations. I mean, if you look at a country like Bangladesh, or look at a country like Vietnam, high
Mhm.
growth, or you know, last week I was in South Africa again. It's a country where there's significant amount of people who want to aspire in terms of moving into better disposable incomes, and therefore aspiring for brands. So, and modern trade, this one coexisting with traditional trade. A lot of countries, e-commerce is emerging as a big thing. We are seeing this in Vietnam. We are seeing this in say UAE, Saudi. So I think there are a lot of commonalities, and our entire approach is rather local rather than a standard global operating model, because in a lot of countries, like say for example, we have ethnic hair care in South Africa. We have some, but we participate in broadly some common categories, but we have brands which are regional.
Interesting. Coming to some, questions relating to the organization. So you have two distinct models. One is your traditional FMCG business, which is Marico, and then you have, all these acquired businesses. And I remember you telling me that you prefer running them differently altogether. There's no kind of clash between the two. How has that helped in building a healthier organization?
So if you look at the mothership, which is the
Yeah,
core organization,
yeah,
Marico 1.2,
yeah,
I think it's a what a model based on scale,
yeah,
efficiency, a
yeah.
repeatable model of driving large brands, large marketing budgets, mass distribution. Obviously, it has also got you know some of the niche brands, or spend in digital. In fact, even for our core business today, digital spends next year is expected to cross almost 50%, moving to almost 50%. So if you look at the digital brands, it's the entire business is about think big, start small, scale up or drop fast, high velocity innovation. The innovation cycles are completely different, far more risk taking appetite, because the size of the risk is far lower, you know and
Yeah,
therefore they're two culturally different, although the same
yeah,
core Marico values. The kind of talent is different, even things like processes, the compensation system is different. Having said that, I think there are synergies within. Now we have 6 to 7 digital brands,
yeah,
and within that there are food and personal care, which have a different kind of a set. There are significant synergies. The entire Marico ecosystem is available on tap to help. And the last thing which I believe we can still do a better job is how does the Marico core borrow in terms of capability, whether it's agility, far more digital savvy mindset, for example, things like content, influencer, digital marketing, high velocity innovation, which they can borrow and learn from them. So I think there's a huge amount of synergies possible. At the same time, we want them to run separately, because I believe that the entire operating model are too different, and trying to force fit together lead to some kind of I think a slowing down, a shackling of what the digital brands can do in full potential.
how different are mindsets there, like when when you sit on a meeting in one of your D2C digital first brands vis-a-vis the legacy Marico? How different are the mindsets? What kind of conversations you have?
So I think fundamentally, I think it's a little different. Having said that, I think, see, sometimes this digital brands or entrepreneurship is mistaken as spray and pray. Ultimately,
Yeah,
it's all again having focus, conviction. So fundamentals of business don't change. I think it's a cycle times, reaction times, and as I said that here I am doing 60 activities, I mean high risk but low ticket size, versus
yeah.
out here. And obviously to steer a large organization versus here, I think there's far more agility and system processes. I think it's fortunately, even a Marico core, our average age of our talent is 29. So it's not that We are all only sitting in Marico
Yeah.
core as such. But I think the mindset needs to be slightly different. I think what has helped Marico also is that even in the Marico core, there is what I call a entrepreneurial or a founder's mentality or a owner's mindset, which has helped in ensuring that we are able to integrate them while, as a part of Marico 2.0 also. Because sometimes what happens is that uh, because empowerment and owner's mindset is somewhere a part of the overall Marico culture, we have been able to, we are far more flexible and adaptable to work in that culture. So as I said, that I might be, and which helps even someone like me from, you know maybe in the in AM I am reviewing a 5,000 crore business, and I'm
Yeah.
reviewing a 200 crore business,
Yeah.
which is, I think, so therefore adaptable leadership is important to manage both kinds of a mindset and run two operating
Anything
models.
that you had to unlearn?
I think according to me, that perfection, you in a large core business, I think you try to, so therefore here you work with 50% data and use gut instinct. And I think at the end of the day, I think, as I said, that you have to take fast decisions sometimes with far lower data, and keep on taking decisions, and your algo will get perfected.
So did these insights, the new age insights, help you to reinvent some of your core portfolio brands?
I think we had started that process. I think
Okay.
the process of consumer insight, even use of AI today, like for
Yeah.
example, a lot of digital brands today, whether it's in packaging, communication development, a lot of things we are using far more AI,
Yeah.
which they are learning, or how to use content influencers, the entire thing. So a lot of things which we are testing out in some of the digital brands, even innovation process, uh, I mean, not doing extensive market research, or entirely compressing cycle times, for example, some things which can easily get picked up by the core business.
So when you say that you'll be reinventing some of your core business brand, core portfolio brands, I mean, has that already started happening, or is the new,
Absolutely.
are we going to see some new launches coming?
No, no, so for example, as I said, that, see, what has happened is that, sometimes the growth
Yeah.
rates of a lot of incumbent companies have slowed down in recent times.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the FMCG sector has slowed down. What
Yeah.
essentially has happened is, at the top end, a lot of digital brands has taken some growth, and at the bottom end, perhaps regional brands has taken some growth. Okay,
Yeah.
so so to give an example, if I don't participate in some of the digital plays which are possible in say in our core category, then somebody else will run away with it.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Onion oil, for example, is a
Yeah.
great example of something
Yes.
we didn't participate. But today,
Yeah.
I have a significant play in premium value-added hair oils. I have a significant play. I'm started in things like a category like a hair growth serum.
Yeah.
Okay, or let's take a case of a simple category like muesli. Now, if the market is moving to protein muesli or protein oats, if I don't participate, or some of the digital brands, so today our ability to spot those far more quicker and participate in it, because I have access to the channel. And now what I have done is, we have an access to a far more faster, agile innovation process because of the digital brands. So, so there's a part of the core organization who has started thinking like digital brands.
Um, AI inarguably is the biggest disruptor in today's times. So it'll be interesting to hear from you as to how you are changing yourself to kind of keep pace with the AI era. In fact, I mean, before you come to your business as a leader, did you? I mean, have you been going through some mentorship? How are you? Because kind of equipping yourself to brace the AI changes brought about by AI.
I think the first thing is that I believe one needs to be not threatened by AI. Use it as an ally, in terms of how do I see, AI is not about job losses. AI is about how do I make processes efficient, take faster decisions and better quality decisions. Okay, uh, and so that I release resources for more growth.
Yeah.
Okay. uh, so I think we have been driving some of the things in use cases across. I think AI, if we have to be implemented across the organization, when one needs to look at the entire process rather than compartmentalize saying, AI, for example, the entire supply chain process, starting from demand forecasting right up to production planning. And there are opportunities. I talked about communication. We do very interesting thing on inciting, for example. See, uh, earlier days, people used to do these focus groups in different languages and
Yeah.
somebody used to translate,
Yes.
and then you used to listen to the
Yeah.
translation. So today, I think AI offers this opportunity. Everything can be transcribed, or tomorrow you can do all inciting or trends. So there are a lot of processes or innovation which you can be done. What we are doing is in every pocket we are saying that can I do use cases. There are always kind of some green balls in the system who are adopting it. AI can be used significantly for personal productivity. Some of the processes can be automated. And what we're doing is so to give people confidence, we are saying that, okay, can I do parallel processes, some with use AI and same with human element and perfect it.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think AI can throw a lot of options. There should be a human to finally take the choice making and decisions.
Yeah.
You can't outsource the intellectual capacity to AI totally.
Yeah.
I think that's where I feel. But I think if one can force, but the system to do it, and I believe once it becomes a habit, it's a habit change. I mean, ultimately, it's a trend. It's a habit change. I believe the possibilities are endless.
So you're saying AI will not take away jobs?
No, no, the way AI will release time, can you, or maybe take away certain roles, that doesn't mean it's going to, but that can give you the opportunity for better growth and efficiency. One needs to look at from that spectrum. It can't be just used as a cost saving tool, an
Okay.
automation tool.
Okay. So when when the new management trainees enter your organization, what are you telling them now? Like, is AI kind of knowledge a prerequisite, or you get them to learn on the job?
I think one needs to be curious. I think, and a
Yeah.
learning, a kind of a
Yeah.
learning mindset, and irrespective of age or role. Uh, I believe data analytics, AI. These are the new age capabilities. Uh, like in our industry, I think the biggest disruption has happened in the field of marketing, for example. The traditional marketing versus today's marketing. So I think it's important for them to get trained in it. We are certifying people in data analytics. A lot of management trainees go through that because I believe that it's important to personally enrich oneself, and it's just not uh, look at, for example, AI, the possibilities in AI in terms of perspective building. We are getting significant portion of our overall team is getting covered by that training. In fact, tomorrow we are the XCOM is getting trained, in
Wow.
terms of some of the things on what are the possibilities and
Okay.
we can do in AI, and some of the stuff which you can do. And I think, as I said, that the learning mindset has to be there in the organization, and how to reinvent yourself. Because if you don't reinvent yourself, if you don't have a learning mindset, and I think any leader has to be curious. Curiosity is also a very important factor
Yeah.
for a person to have that learning mindset, agility mindset.
So my last question to you would be your leadership mantra. But before I come to that, I'm curious to know as to what do you do outside of Marico? Anything that and any of those acquisitions that you've recently made, has it come from any personal passions? Is there anything that you would like to talk to us about?
I think, see, a lot of acquisitions comes because of idea. I mean, see, we are seen as a strategic investor of choice, and therefore we have built strong relationships with the founders and the ecosystem. Some of the trends, yes, I think, as I said, that ultimately you have to be very outside in,
Yeah.
look at trends, look at what's happening. Some of the innovation, when I travel, I come across an idea or look at trends. Like, for example, a lot of food trends in India come from the West. A lot of personal care trends come from North Asia. So if you look at K beauty, J beauty, a lot of male grooming
Yeah.
things come from. So I think whenever you travel, like I will go to a Whole Foods in US and see what are the trends coming, and I'll come and tell my team, okay, let's look at it, let's evaluate some of the. And I think the digital ecosystem which I have now of 6 7 brands allows you to experiment, which your traditional model might not allow to experiment that much.
So, what do you really do outside of Marico is what I wanted to know.
So I think I like traveling. I watch. I do a lot of what I call Netflix binging, and this
So,
one.
what's the latest? What's the show that you're currently watching on Netflix?
What did I haven't actually, unfortunately, I've been traveling last 2 weeks, so haven't had a chance. But I think I do. I think for me, I ensure that while I do put in long hours and I'm always on. I mean, if somebody asks for something, even at 11 o'clock in the night, that person gets a response. I'm always on available. But at the same time, I think you need to de-stress, whether you train or you meet close friends, I travel. So I think at the end of the day, I think I believe it's very important to, in today's world, to be resilient and absorb stress, and therefore happiness is important.
Yeah.
And as long as you remain happy, and obviously I have always believed that you should do something which you are good at but enjoy doing it, then there is no problem. I've never had ever a so-called work-life balance issue in my life. While I put in significant amount of hours, I travel a lot, but I think one needs to manage that, and you have to be always on. In today's, like, I've never had a out of office in my life on my Outlook. It's I'm reachable anywhere, and it's even, and the good thing is today there is internet on flights,
Yeah.
so you can always
So
work.
you just can't switch off. so, um, so finally, coming towards the end of this conversation, what's your leadership mantra, especially in these turbulent times?
See, I think two things. One is ability to spot a risk and opportunity ahead of others and coping with it. The second thing is, I think, adaptability or agility. You have to always have a plan A, plan B, plan C. You know,
Yeah.
and you need to be paranoid. Sometimes, like, what can go wrong, what can go wrong, what can go wrong. Even while you are successful, you can't get complacent. And lastly, what I would say is this: grit is important, and grit is just not about passion; it is about resilience.
Yeah.
And today, if you really look at it, that is becoming a single biggest factor of that grit.
Thank you so much, Shogato, for this interesting, insightful conversation. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Do tune in to Fortune India for more such thought provoking conversations with stalwarts of India Inc. See you soon.